Already. Well, I know this issue is controversial because historically, anyone who talks about UFOs and extraterrestrial phenomena is there is no clear scientific evidence to date, at least the way I don't know how things work from a statistical point of view, but I have been interested in this topic for a while, and I kind of lost interest at some time. Like obviously with starting my companies, I didn't have the time to invest in the research angle as much. But in my 30s and even before, even like somewhat in my 20s, in my 30s for sure, uh, I would say like late 20s to early 30s, I dropped a lot of time on um, researching UFO specific phenomena. Uh, UFO stands for unidentified flying objects, but it could just be any phenomenon. And I think we need a better description. I think the abbreviation that makes sense to me is phenomena that has yet to be identified. So, however, somebody can come up with a better abbreviation for it, I'm all for that. Before you click exit, just stay with me for this video because I really believe this could be a very important issue. And it's not because I am pro clean tech or pro solar or pro other means to be able to harness the sun's energy. I genuinely think, at the very least, I don't have the numbers to back it up with because I don't do this for a full time. I'm not a full time risk analyst. I'm also not anti-nuclear energy. Uh, I just I'm just putting a question out there. What if what if there are beings that are more advanced than us? What if they're actually trying to warn us about our nuclear installations? So this is my topic today. Please just watch the content for what it's worth and then form your own conclusions. And if there is any information that I should you would like to share with me, then find a way to get in touch with me through Quora, through LinkedIn, or through another means. I'm very accessible on the internet. All right, so with that introduction, let's just get into this subject. I didn't prepare slides, but I'll just talk about the issue. I've been thinking about this issue on and off for a couple of days, and I think this is something we need to discuss. All right, so let's just keep an open mind and just hear me out and then form your own opinions. So as of right now, basically 10% of the Earth's energy comes from fission, nuclear fission, which is splitting the uranium atoms, the way I understand it. I don't personally know how this all works. I have a friend in Pakistan, actually, who works in the nuclear industry. I guess I could ask him, but I don't know how the security angle plays into all that, how much information you can really. But I think a lot of the information with regards to how nuclear works is in the public domain. So I personally haven't spent the time to educate myself on how it works. And the images I'm actually bringing up are also from Creative Commons. But like I said, 10% of the world's energy comes from nuclear, right? And I don't know if this share has increased over the year or decreased, or it remains like the same. It's getting lesser because of clean tech. I do know that because of the energy needs, Canada has a lot of nuclear and atomic power plants, and I could see the same for other parts of the world. Now, moving on, there are approximately this many power reactors in the world, and I'm not going to click on the list for a variety of reasons, but it requires water. Most of the reactors require water. I don't know if there's any reactor really that doesn't require a lot of water. So usually the reactors are built near the shore. I think, I'm not sure, or near a lake or some river or some capacity to be able to like just cool the rods and whatnot. Right. So I didn't know about this when I was just starting this. I guess I barely researched this topic, at least today. But I typed nuclear in Google, and looks like there's something happening again at Chernobyl. So I don't know what's happening. I didn't follow the news, but apparently the reactions are. I don't even know if this is accurate, because I would think Chernobyl would keep doing the reaction thing for the next 20,000 years, because that's, I think, how long it takes for the radioactivity to remain there. So that's a simple Google search I did. I don't actually know if this is verifiable, but the kind of disaster that happened in the present day Ukraine slash Russia's kind of area. Well, I think it's mostly in Ukraine, Chernobyl. I think I'm not, I could be wrong. That kind of disaster will remain radioactive for this long. It will remain radioactive for a long time, and it is unfit for human habitation as well for other life. There's probably wildlife there, but I don't know if what kind of research has happened with regards to what's really going on with that life on a physiological and cellular level, and what kind of impact radioactivity is really having on those creatures. I did just a simple search, nuclear Google News, and looks like there's some leak of sorts in near Hong Kong. So maybe this is typical, and leaks get plugged all the time. We actually have a power plant not too far from where I live. In the 20 years I've lived in this region, I think there has been at least 2 or 3 leaks. So I don't know, like, how you rate this and go from there. If you Google, again, the worst nuclear disaster, Chernobyl comes at the top of the list. And the way I understand it, I could be wrong about this, but basically this happened during the Soviet era, I believe. And I think I could be wrong, but the whole thing was just covered with massive, massive amounts of concrete. So the meltdown happened, and then the response was to just cover the whole thing with concrete. I don't know what's going on now, right? Close to where I live on the eastern seaboard, this one comes to mind. I haven't looked at this exhaustively, but apparently there was a 3-mile island accident not too far from where I live. Pennsylvania is a couple hours of drive. I think like 6 or 7 hours from here. And it wasn't even close to as bad as Chernobyl, but again, I don't know if there's a scale, and like, where did 3 Mile actually fit in terms of the scale, if there is a scale for nuclear accidents, right? The one that I can think of, I was actually doing business continuities, and I was gonna go into did a little bit of work with risk management, barely 8 months to 9 months as an analyst at one of the insurance companies. But when I was doing business continuity, Fukushima happened, and this is something that was on the radar. We were looking at this almost every day, and Fukushima seemed pretty bad because the reactor had, I believe, melted, and I'm quoting this from memory, I could be wrong, and I think portion of the reactor was submerged, because this happened after the 2011, sorry, yeah, I think it was 2011 tsunami, right? Yeah, there we go. So 2011 earthquake and tsunami that happened. If anyone remembers that era, that was obviously one of the worst tsunamis we have witnessed in recorded history, I think. But yeah, the reactor just melted, and it was submerged, and I think it was because of the brave work of a few individuals who risked their lives to contain that incident. And this is why I'm a huge proponent of, not to take anything away from that event, but I'm a huge proponent of enabling the robots today so that we are prepared for events like this and more. Uh, I feel that work may not be happening on a fast enough pace here, because again, I don't know if the next Fukushima happens, if we're going to again send 100, 200 individuals to die so that the rest can live, so these are ethical decisions, and this is why, again, I'm a huge proponent of robotics at the very least. But again, not to take away from the topic, Fukushima, from my perspective, because I was just a kid when Chernobyl happened, so I don't even remember it. I think Chernobyl's spread the radioactivity spread throughout Europe and beyond. Obviously, it wasn't enough to cause massive problems, but I don't know how these things really work in the long run, right? But Fukushima could have been a big problem. I think they were running some simulations, and I'm not sure, again, I didn't verify this, but if Fukushima continued to sink and it couldn't be extracted from the Pacific, then eventually they were saying the radioactivity would spread throughout the Pacific and eventually the entire ocean system. That was a big problem. So anyways, I personally recall Fukushima as the worst nuclear disaster, and I had a chance to monitor it on an ongoing basis. It just happens to be the work I was doing at that time. I've already shared this, and at this point, I'm going to segue into something different. And this is something I learned from this YouTube channel. It's Anton Petrov's YouTube channel, and this is the title. And I thought it was a little sensationalist when well, it's right here. So I thought it was a little sensationalist, but when I reviewed the content, it made rational sense. I think to categorize CMEs as something that could have a pretty significant negative impact on the human species. So first of all, what is a CME? A CME stands for a coronal mass ejection. Basically, these are plasma waves or streams of plasma that travel at a very high speed towards a particular point. So it has obviously it has a velocity, it has obviously if it's a vector-based thing, it has a direction. So I don't again know much about this as well, but I think the sun goes through cycles, right? So there may be longer periods of inactivity, and then you will see some CMEs. And that's, I don't know when we started doing this, but we only have data for the last couple of decades, or maybe 100 years, plus minus, or maybe more, maybe less. But and I'm not an expert, definitely doing a very surface level scan here. So the probability to me seems low that we're going around the sun and there is some coronal mass ejection, and we happen to be right exactly in that path where the coronal mass ejection will happen. And there's a bunch of different ways to look at it, but what if there was a CME event? Just make sure it's still recording. What if there was a CME event that was happening for a periodic, like it's some consistent, or how should I say it, more frequently? And what if the sun, for whatever reason, was flaring up? And what if Earth happened to be right in the path of a CME? Right. So go to Anton's video. I'll put a link to Anton's video in the description of this video, and watch the whole thing. He talks about a couple of different events. In recorded history, there have been a couple of different events. I think there was one during the 1800s, which took down the telegraph system because there was no telephones or internet at that time. So the telegraph systems were impacted because of CMEs. If I think an event like that happened today, it could be a big problem because I don't know how it would take out the transformers and a whole bunch of other things. Depends on the severity of a CME. Anton Petrov talks a fair bit about computational computers and how our computers are not shielded against something like this. And I'm looking at the computer that's here. I have an old school computer sitting here. So Petrov quotes that only a handful of machinery in the world is specifically designed to withstand coronal mass ejections. And I think he said, I could be wrong, that almost all these machines are in the domain of, or in the basically the military has them. So it could be particular aircraft or some other machines, maybe computers that have the shielding against CMEs. Okay. So again, this is you can Google coronal mass ejections and do your own diligence. I would say I would put a disclaimer here, and I personally would want to be involved in a project whereby if we are building shields for the Earth, that we think of this. I'd love my team to be involved because we could come up with the ideas. We could not just on all that. We could help define the problem. We could develop some prototypes. We could help look at the problem from a variety of different angles, not just the technical solution, because you will need global consensus. You need to consider this from a security perspective, obviously from a foreign policy perspective, and more from you need an ethical framework here. And there's I think about this a fair bit, the anti-weaponization angle, because my intuitive guess has always been that the weaponization of outer space would actually be a threat to our existence. I actually believe that. I think the more we weaponize outer space, the least prepared we're going to be for astronomical specific risk or extra. Should I say this? I want to say the word extra risk, but I'm going to talk about something right now. Basically, risks of a existential that could pose an existential risk or significant disruption at that. Significant, where like a lot of lives could be lost or could be negatively impacted, or both. So yeah, I really believe the weaponization of space will have a huge retrograde effect on the human species, and that plus the fact that some noise distracted me. Sorry, that plus the fact that it would actually be a bad thing for the human existence, because we're not going to be able to open up the frontier on a pace and scale because of the lack of trust that may emerge as a result of weaponizing outer space. So these are the kind of problems that I think we're going to be dealing with in this century, maybe this decade. Who knows? We can't predict what's going to happen next, but I think we need to, and I've shared this thought many times, we need to all rethink about the successive steps on the Kardashian scale, because we don't know what's in the, at least I don't think we have a very good idea of what's really in the in the nearby galaxy. We don't even know what's beyond our solar system, and the solar system is a big place. And just to come back to the topic, yeah, our team can totally assist with helping define the problem. And we're not experts in this area, but I actually have noted this as one of the areas for our team to focus on. It's not something we put out on our website or on our mission statement that's public. But if there is an existential risk, I want my team to be ready to jump in and assist to the best of our abilities. And that's something I communicate with my team on a one-on-one basis all the time. This is why, and working with the military and intelligence is, and the space agency is a core part of that. So yeah, I just want to share that. I'm not hoping for the worst, but I believe we should be prepared. We should be prepared for these. We should prepare for this now, and because if something like this is occurring, then we may not have enough time. Okay, so coming back to Petrov, Petrov also talks about a couple of different things. I think he was growing up in Quebec. He talks about the CME event in Quebec. This is not from the 1800s, obviously now. So we're not talking like the past 30 years or so. In the CME event in Quebec in 1989 was responsible for rolling the blackouts. I didn't like look into this extensively, but the search results from Google are right there. So if I click on this, if I Google CME Quebec 1989, this is the first thing that comes up from NASA, and looks like Quebec was in the direct line of kind of impact for this coronal mass ejection. So so it's saying on March 13th, around 3 o'clock, just before 3 o'clock, the currents found a weakness in the electrical power grid of Quebec. In less than 2 minutes, the entire Quebec power grid lost power. During the 12-hour blackout that followed, millions of people suddenly found themselves in dark office buildings and underground pedestrian tunnels. Oh, I guess it was, well, if it happened at 2, 3 a.m. local time, then maybe some people, or maybe it happened like in a cascade thing. I was saying suddenly as well. Anyways, and installed elevators. People woke up to cold homes for breakfast. The blackout also closed schools and businesses, kept the Montreal metro shut during the morning rush hour, and closed the airport. It was not a local event. Some U.S. electrical outlets also had their own cliffhanger problems to deal with. New York Power lost this much energy when the Quebec power grid went down. So it's a cascading effect, right? We had another blackout around the 2000s. I think it was just because there was too much load on the system. It wasn't because of geostorm. Um, oh wow! Across the United States, from coast to coast, over 200 power grid problems erupted within minutes, and of the start of March 13th storm, within the start of the March 13th storm. Fortunately, none of these caused a blackout. Okay, so there were problems, but not enough to cause a blackout across the United States. Satellites had some issues that looks like. Now the article closes saying 20 years later, the March 1989 Quebec blackout has reached legendary stature, at least amongst electrical engineers and space scientists. It is a dramatic example of how solar storm can affect us even here on ground. Fortunately, storms as powerful as this are rather rare. It takes quite a solar wallop to cause anything like the conditions leading up to the Quebec-style blackout. Typical solar activity sunspot cycles can produce at least 2 or 3 large storms. So it really is just a matter of chance whether one will cause a blackout or not. As it is for hurricanes or tornadoes, the more we can learn about the sun's space weather, the better we can prepare for the next storm when it arrives. Okay, so that's the first article that comes up from NASA. Again, I don't really know much about geomagnetic storms or CMEs and how frequent they are, but the article is there. The next thing I'm gonna segue into is a little I started with this topic, and we have 100 billion stars in this galaxy alone, and I've, I started with thought, like I said, I have an interest in, uh, I'm very curious about what kind of beings exist, not just on other planets, maybe potentially other realities, maybe inner spaces, like Luis Elizondo. I've never seen his name. Luis Elizondo would say, talk about Luis in a minute. Uh, but from the, I haven't done a quantitative analysis here, but a lot of the scientists who do this for a living, it's really rare for them to say that prospect of there being zero life in the universe, zero intelligence. Like I've not seen any. The universe is a big place, right? I'm like more interested in the galaxy, right? Or more interested in like our interaction with potentially other life forms whereby our like their computation, like I'm saying, brain. Our brain is computing at a certain level, which gives us culture and computers and music and arts and science. Just, a lot of things, microscopes, a whole bunch of other things, telescopes and whatnot. So I'm saying our brain is computing at a certain level for us to be able to create all these inventions, and obviously we have language. We have the ability to predict the future, think about the future, like Dr. Michio would say, which seems to distinguish us from other beings. I guess our ability to predict the future is a little better than ants. Ants also, I would think, predict the future. I would say even plants can predict the future because plants know, first of all, when to come, like, when the seed should blossom or germinate. It has to be the right conditions. And then they know when they should bear fruit. Because when I look at plants, I can see it doesn't look like plants have a brain. So their cells are making all these decisions. Somehow the decisions are encoded in their genetics. Because again, there doesn't look like cell of plants and trees have brains. So anyways, so the ability to predict the future, that's what I was saying. So what I'm saying is I'm just personally very interested in this topic. And my personal take is that there are beings somewhere. And I'm actually, at this point, I'm beginning to suspect that we may be in contact with some of these beings. I don't know how this all works, but I'm just going to put the question out there. And I say this after, not to sound all that, but many, more than a decade looking at this on and off, but not so much in the past 6 or 7 years, just being focused on starting companies. But this is just a snapshot based on how I see it. And some other, I share my resources there. So if you go to the towards the mid portion of this blog post, I share my resources all the way from actual statements from astronauts from the Apollo 11 missions or successive Apollo missions. Former Canadian Defense Minister, Mr. Paul Hellyer, Philip J. Corso, who was a colonel in the U.S. Army, 2 other individuals, Dr. Stephen Greer, who I've listened to a fair bit. I've actually had the opportunity and the honor actually to watch the original Disclosure Project, which I don't think you can even look. I can't look at this again on the internet. I back in the days I downloaded this as a torrent, and this was the Disclosure Project was the thing that shifted my there was just too much evidence. There were a lot of former military, former pilots, former radar operators, former U.S. Air Force, which is military. There were a lot of individuals who didn't seem like had any direct thing to benefit from what they were saying. And I could just sense honesty in their, I'm not an expert in reading human, what do you call it? Like when you read somebody, but they seem very honest, and I didn't see why they would make something like that. Now I am a skeptic. I believe. I think as like that's just who I am. So one of the things that Werner von Braun said was, according to um, his personal assistant, Carol Rosen, I think her name is. Um, she's got like pretty white hair. I don't know if I mentioned her on this blog post, but according to Carol Rosen, there were going to be a sequence of events, and a lot of things were like kind of almost staged. She didn't use those words, but I mean, like, so when I looked at the testimony, I was kind of like thinking what Carol had said. I don't know her personally. I think her name is Carol Rosen. I could be wrong. I can Google this. But, so anyway, so that's how I kind of look at this. I personally think there is something going on because it's hard to fake things on this scale when so many individuals have witnessed some phenomena and more than one individual has witnessed a phenomena, and there's now evidence that's coming out. So historically, there was an incident near Ottawa. I forget. The CMEs has made a documentary on this. The Phoenix Lights. Kurt Russell actually saw that and reported that to the control tower. Kurt Russell is an actor. There will be multiple events like this, but the information wasn't. Anyway, so that's what I want to talk about. Now, more recently, this has been making a lot of news. This is the Tic Tac event, and there were two, I believe, actually four. There were two planes, I believe, two fighter jets off the coast of San Diego, I believe. I forget when exactly this happened. This happened about a while ago. It was not more recent, but it's been declassified more recently. So the Tic Tac event is basically a phenomenon. I don't know if you can call it a vessel, and it's the shape of looks like the shape of a Tic Tac, and it was found hovering over the coast. I don't know how many kilometers out by somewhere near San Diego, if I recall correctly. Oh, the word recall is there too. And the pilots who were doing this mission managed to capture the phenomena on camera. They were able to lock the camera on it and track it. And so there's something there, and this thing is I forget how fast it is, but basically there's no known aerial or any other machine that we know of as a species, at least from my civilian uneducated perspective, that can travel at these speeds and do these maneuvers. And they speak about things like this in the original Disclosure Project as well. And so this is not a new thing if you go by the Disclosure Project or maybe even before that. Because in the Disclosure Project, they talk about phenomena that is doing these unbelievable speeds, and it can do these unreal maneuvers. It would do like a 90-degree turn at like thousands of miles or something, like crazy speeds. And it wasn't like a radar malfunction because multiple radars could spot these, phenomena. We don't know what this is. But the Tic Tac incident is the word incident also, maybe thoughts can, I think our thoughts can be really greatly influenced, but that's an off topic. But the Tic Tac incident does warrant a question at the very least as to what's really going on here, right? So, excuse me, this has now come out of the domain of like woo-woo, kooky stuff to something that now I think there should be some investigation on what this really is. So time will tell, but I think it's going to be difficult because we have like cameras everywhere now. There's a lot more astronomers, and there's a lot of amateur astronomers mapping the night sky. We got like all of these satellites spread out throughout um, throughout the solar system. And as we become multi-planetary species, there's going to be a further democratization of all this phenomena that we're just kind of sure all that. So I think it's going to be difficult to um, like I'm not saying this is a conspiracy or anything. I think we were just going to have more access to what's going on, just like we have more access to what's going on in the world because of social media. It spreads very fast, right? And it's now a global connected planet, and information travels really fast. I still don't think you should watch news, but that's another topic. Okay, so my next segue is to Luis Elizondo. So Mr. Elizondo is a former U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent. I believe he was also a director in one of the defense. So yeah, it's right here. Director of Global Security and Special Programs. Oh no, that's okay. So there was a unit in the U.S. Army, it seems, under the Office of the Undersecretary for Defense for Intelligence, and there was a program that was started. It was called, I think, AATP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, something like that. And Luis was the director for this this institution. And this was this is like, you know, the funding aspect, and the details are on Luis's Wikipedia page. So I don't know what happened here. I don't look at the details, but Tom DeLonge, who is from Blink 182, one of the lead singers of Blink 182. So I think DeLonge, like Blink 182 broke up, and I looked into this a little bit because I love Blink 182, and it didn't like, anyways. I think that's off topic, but DeLonge decided to focus more on To the Stars and maybe other things, and you know, one of the stated missions of To the Stars is to work more towards uncovering what's really happening with some of these phenomena, like the Tic Tac incidents and many potentially others. So yeah, so Luis Elizondo, Mr. Elizondo, is now working at the To the Stars Academy. So if you Google his name, his interviews come up, and he's been getting some good press, I think, from some notable institutions. And yeah, just you know, do your, like, you can look it up yourself. And I've been watching some of his interviews. One of the things, and to come to the topic, one of the things he talks about is that several, in this case, UFO, and I always share why we should call them phenomena that is yet to be identified. So I guess PYI. Yeah, something like that. Because we don't necessarily know that these are flying objects, right? These could be like an extra dimensional construct of some sort. So we could just be seeing the tip of something that is entering our three-dimensional or whatever number of dimensions we have. So if it's coming from a higher dimension, just like a flatlander, we'll only see the tip of something that's entering the flatlander, even though it may be a 3D structure. If this is an extra dimensional phenomenon, then we're just seeing like a portion of it, something like that. However, multi-dimensions work, right? So it could be multi-dimensional, it could be from somewhere else, it could be an illusion, it could be like a hologram of sorts. I don't know, it could just be some particles of energy that being that have been put together to do what they're supposed to do. It could actually very well be a being of sorts, right? It may not be like a meat, or sorry, it's not meat in this case. It's not just a puppet of sorts. Yeah, we don't know what it is. That's why I say it's more apt to call it a phenomenon that's yet to be identified than an actual. Anyways, to come back to the topic, the thing that piqued my interest is that uh, Elizondo, Elizondo, Elizondo has quoted that several of the UFO sightings have been above secret nuclear weapons facilities. It's right here. I went to this Washington Post article. I just googled Elizondo and the word nuclear, and this was one of the articles that came up. And then in this article, I'm searching again for the term nuclear. Well, kind of. But yeah, so now I'm going to read this paragraph. Almost every major nuclear power across the globe really has reported and declassified these sightings. You have talked extensively about the connection here, which might be helpful. Oh, so sorry, this is the lady. I saw this. I think I saw this interview. This is the Washington Post reporter. So anyway, so this is the question. So she's saying, you have talked extensively about the connection here, which might be helpful, I think, for some people to hear in advance of my next question, which is whether or not the US government has considered utilizing nuclear-powered naval fleets to lure these kind of things to further study them. That's a really interesting question. This girl's done her research. she's thinking of all the different angles. That's a really interesting point. Well, if we're doing this, then I'm pretty sure the aliens are like, if some being can enter our space and like have these kind of speeds, like just the ability to be able to come from another part of maybe who knows, maybe they could be from, like Elizondo said, they could be from the ocean in random, or they could be from somewhere in the solar system, which we may not know. They could be from another star system, right? Or from an inner space. I'm actually saying what Elizondo says at this point. They could be from another dimension, but whoever these things are, this phenomena is, they're much more advanced than we are, because our best jets or our best machines, we kind of know what are, unless it's in a secret like a lab of something, probably a military installation somewhere. We kind of know, like, unless it's that, we kind of know what our capabilities are as a species. So, but this is an interesting point. So let's see what else comes up. So in this paragraph, they're saying UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. I think that's what it's going to stand for. There seems to be some sort of congruency or some sort of intersection between these UAP or UFO sightings and our nuclear technology with nuclear propulsion, nuclear power generation, or nuclear weapon systems. Okay, nuclear technology with nuclear propulsion, that, like, I don't know much about this, but the only thing I can think of here is Project Orion from Mr. Dyson, Freeman Dyson, right? So Mr. Freeman Dyson, who just passed away, I believe last year or the year before, worked on the Project Orion, and the goal was to do these series of kind of cascading detonations in order to be able to beam a pretty powerful machine or rocket into space. The project got canceled because of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, which prohibits, I guess, the firing of weapons of any sort. I don't know what the provisions are, but I think that's why the project primarily was canceled. So that would be something I would think of, nuclear technology with nuclear propulsion. More recently, there have been talks of bringing nuclear propulsion back. I don't know how accurate this is because I didn't verify the sources, and I also don't know what the driver for something like that is, which I'm not going to talk about that right now. Nuclear power generation, spoke about that. Nuclear weapon systems. Well, nuclear power generation can be redirected towards creating nuclear weapon systems. And the brief history of this is that the first nuclear weapons, I believe, were made or demonstrated during World War II. Since then, the technology has leaked out, and there were a couple of key individuals. Anyway, still, and now we have kind of like a situation with certain countries trying to weaponize nuclear technology again, and so there's things going on of that nature, and all. So perceivably or realistically, some geographies don't get along, and some of them do happen to have nuclear weapons. So this is kind of like the short gist of where we are with nuclear weaponry in the past. 1945, I think, was Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so it was 55. About 70, 75 years, this is where we are, if I did my math right. It's a very short history of weaponizing the nuclear aspect. Anyways, so coming back, this was my commentary. I could be wrong, so feel free to educate me. Coming back to Elizondo, he's then saying, furthermore, the same observations have been seen overseas in other countries. They too have had the same incidents. So that tells us that this is a global issue. Wow, there's a lot of chatter around nuclear here. I didn't realize this. I'm just going through this right now. I don't think I watched the full interview, and this is the transcript from one of the interviews. I did hear Elizondo say this. So Elizondo is now saying, now this one right here, now in this country, we've had incidents where these UAPs have interfered and actually brought offline our nuclear capabilities. And I think to some, they would probably say, well, that's a sign that whatever this is something that is peaceful. But in the same context, we also have data suggesting that in other countries, these things have interfered with their nuclear technology and actually turned them on, put them online. So that is equally for me just as concerning. I think there is a certainty at this point that I think that there is certainty at this point. I think there is certainly at this point enough data to demonstrate that there is an interest in the nuclear technology, a potential to even interfere with that nuclear technology. And when you look at all these naval ships out there, let's take the Nimitz battle carrier fleet, for example. In some cases, you're talking about a nuclear footprint probably bigger than most cities. You have a nuclear powered carrier with aircraft on board, and then you have nuclear powered destroyers. You have nuclear powered submarines, some of those with nuclear weapons on board, or certainly nuclear capabilities. I'll just say that. So I think, yeah, it shouldn't be a surprise that maybe there is an increased interest in our capabilities as it relates to our nuclear technology. And the Navy is certainly not immune to that. Okay, so I don't know how I would interpret this, but like I wouldn't necessarily look at this as a threat, because if this phenomena is actually true, let's just dissect this the way however the evidence is being presented. If this phenomena is actually true, and if this phenomena is actually able to do this, maybe this is intentional, maybe it's because of some fluctuations that region experiences because of however this thing operates, right? So maybe it interferes with the electrical system in the surrounding or something like that. So there's a whole bunch of possibilities. Maybe there's a glitch happening and this thing happens to be there around the same time. There's a lot of different possibilities. But like if we just look at this evidence being presented the way it is, and if this phenomena is actually capable of all of these, they have these capabilities. And if they had ill intent, then they would have done something bad by now. like something bad would have already happened by now, because I don't know how long, for how long this has been observed for. Based on how I've been uh, looking into this phenomena, this has definitely been happening for a couple of decades. If you go back to Colonel Russell, then it's definitely been happening since the 50s or earlier. It depends how far back you want to go. But yeah, like I said, if the intention was bad, something bad would have happened by now. I'm like particularly curious, why nuclear? Why nuclear power plants? Why nuclear weapon systems? And why nuclear propulsion, however that exists right now? Maybe there's some secret propulsion system that is powered by nuclear. So I'm just curious why these beings are so interested in nuclear. Also, what the data suggests. So if you have X number of events with UAPs or UFOs, or however you want to classify this, then what proportion of those events happen to be around nuclear sites or sites of those nature, right? Maybe it's some missile testing facilities. I would group them all together, or would I? Yeah, anything that has the potential to fall in, like cause some big problems. I would clump them all. I think, I'm not sure. I would clump those things together, and yeah. So, and I would go from there. So then, to come back to the article, Mr. Elizondo is saying, I'm not going to read the whole thing. He's saying, well, he's saying there's two congruencies that we see. We see an interest in our nuclear capabilities, and then we have this really bizarre, what I don't know if you call it an interest, but there seems to be a connection with water, and these things have a tendency to be seen in and around water, which kind of leads to one of the observables that we've had. There's 5 distinct observables that set this technology as I mentioned earlier, aside from everything we have in our inventory. Wow, this is really interesting. I'm going to read this article later. Whoa. Some of our best aircraft can withstand about 16 Gs. These things are doing 300, 400, 600 Gs in mid-flight. Wow. Wow. That's what I was talking about. Like the speeds are unreal. That's what I was talking about earlier. Hypersonic velocity. That's exactly what I was talking about. You don't expect a hypersonic craft to do a 90-degree turn. Our best aerospace technology, if it wants to do a turn at 3,200 miles, it takes roughly about half of Ohio to do that. Ohio is a big, obviously it's an entire state. It takes an entire, like if you're doing a maneuver, and these things can do it like boom, 90 degrees. Cloaking. Okay. The third observable is a bit like cloaking. We call it low observability. The fourth observable is that we were talking about, transmedium. That is transmedium travel in water. The ability for an object to fly not only in our atmosphere, low and high altitude, but also potentially in a vacuum environment like space and even underwater. Now we do not. Now we do have vehicles that can do that. We do. We have, for example, a seaplane. A seaplane is a plane that can fly. It can float on the water, but when you look at it, it's neither really a good aircraft or a boat design, uh, or a boat because it's a design compromise. I'm not reading well here right now. And yet, what we are seeing are objects that can operate in all these domains or all these environments, seemingly without any type of performance compromise. Okay, there's a lot of good information here. And what else do we have on the topic of? I kind of covered all of this. I think I've covered everything related to nuclear. Yeah. So this is what I've been thinking of, and the dots I'm connecting is CME, 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 CME. What if there was maybe something happened. The sun goes, it goes from the solar minimum and it starts acting up. It gets a fever. I don't know how the sun operates. I have no idea what's going on inside the sun, how many different layers got, what's really inside its core, how it gets impacted based on the effect that the black hole may be having on it, because it seems to be going around the black hole. I don't know how the different suns go around each other. Apparently, there's going to be another sun near our solar system in about 1,000,000 years. I don't know how big it is, what kind of impact that's going to have on our sun. So I don't know, I don't understand, I don't have a very firm understanding of how things really work from a celestial mechanics sense or astrophysics. There's some interesting projects, particularly the Gaia project. I've got to still go back and check that email from the space ops. We connected with somebody there. But yeah, my visualization of the solar system is lacking, I would say. But I'm just putting a question out there. If there was a CME that happened, and it was something that was happening for an extended time frame, and what if, we get the sun every day, right? So some portion of Earth is always facing the sun. What if that portion was directly in the path of the CME? That's a problem. If that happens, then my worry right now is the nuclear installations, because I don't know what the protocols are, how effectively and safely the installations can be shut down, and that's my primary worry, because we're talking about 440 of these installations around the world. So if power is indeed out for days, weeks, months on end, and there's no communications, then what will happen? The primary concern, I don't know, there's more than a couple of primary concerns right away, in random order. Well, you got to shut this thing down safely, first of all, right? Something has to happen, right? And if you don't do that, then we have a big problem. Again, I don't know how this all works. So the second issue is what's in parallel, the lives that are going to be impacted as a result of the installation shutting down is a big problem, because life support systems are going to go offline because generators are only going to work for so long. Then the senior communities, whether they're living in retirement homes or in their houses, parents with young children, and then it goes from there, right? Anton doesn't explore the nuclear angle as much, but he does talk about nuclear weapons going off. I think he talks about that in his video. I could be wrong. And he's saying the blackout kind of situation could cause I don't want to say something he didn't say. I think what he was trying to say is one side could interpret that as we have been attacked, something like that. You just watch the video actually, and the other side could say, well, we are attacked, we are dark, we might as well attack. They may be thinking in response, but this could just be a CME or some other event. And this is why nuclear weapons are so dangerous. And my stance on nuclear weapons has changed in terms of 100% radical honesty. I used to think that nuclear weapons help prevent the next world war because I'm not a military historian, but that's how I kind of looked at things evolving since World War II. Uh, I am not. I would never want to be in that position to be able to make a decision like that. I still don't know where I stand with regards to how World War II actually came to an end. But I lost my train of thought. But but yeah, historically, my take on this issue was that uh, that maybe nuclear weapons help prevent the next major war from erupting. Uh, However, based on what I shared in today's, I guess video or what I've shared, uh, nuclear weapons going off, whether by accident, by accident or by malfunction, which would be accident, or by deliberate action on part of some rogue nation or rogue group or nation state at that, it would be a really bad thing. And I actually, this is something I explored briefly in a blog post on stellardreams.github.io. I forget the exact blog post, uh, but it was just coincidental that two videos that came up in my feed. I think this was the no, this was not it. This was what I was. There were the two movies actually that came up in my feed. And I'm gonna find it. This is gonna bother me if I don't. Where is it? That takes without time. Yeah, I don't know where that post is right now. I can't remember the title either. But CMEs could cause a big problem. And if the nuclear power plants cannot be shut down properly, then it's going to be an even bigger problem because we now will have a potential problem when there's no communication. And we could be, depending on how severe these ejections are, we could be in the dark for days, like I said, weeks, months, maybe longer, right? Depends how massive this ejection is and how it impacts the grid. You know, maybe it's massive enough to just wipe out transformers because transformers, we generally just put them out in the open. And I have no idea how this whole thing works, how this supply chain is actually set up. It could take weeks or months to ship something like that from another part of the world and install it again. But that would just be one component. What if a lot more machinery is impacted as a result of this? I'm not an expert here, so I'm definitely not going to go into. I was going to say coronavirus mode for some reason because it's because it's coronal, right? So, but anyways, so I just I was just thinking, like, what like this. Somebody may make fun of me, but what if uh, what if our beings from outside, I don't know how to classify this, our beings or phenomena of some sort? Are they trying to warn us about our nuclear installations? If so, why? And that is what I explored in this video today. That probably, when you put content out content like this out there, there is that possibility that you may get made fun of, ridiculed, um, and other things I'm doing or we're doing, we may not be taken seriously. I thought about this. I thought about this for a couple of weeks, actually, amongst other things. But I then thought, what is the thing? What is the risk of not sharing this perspective? And that seemed to be too significant. That's why I made this video. So I don't know how things really work, man. I have no idea how reality works, how quantum mechanics works, how the brain works even, where the, like Lex Friedman was saying this in one of his podcasts, where do the thoughts really come from? That's a good question, because we don't know, like, some of the like underpinnings of how, like, the memory formation, so these are all very complex questions that we're just trying to understand. But to come back to the subject, I, I think we need to have an open discussion about this and just look at the evidence, uh, the way it's the way it is, not the way we would like to. Uh, I don't know the, like, whatever. Like, I just think we should. That's really it. And I think they were also talking about this in the Lex Friedman podcast. In one of the episodes, they said, I think it was the episode with Sam Harris. I could be wrong. We were talking about. I think Friedman has said this a couple of times. We're like, hey, we're either too busy on our phones, or too jaded, or something like that, to say, well, there's something going on. We don't know what it is, but for some reason, like, things like this don't, I guess, gel in our consciousness, or, like, like. But I'm just pointing a simple question out there about what we're doing as a species. And it's just, it's not just nuclear, it could be other things too, because there could be amongst us individuals or individual who may be doing something that could cause great harm, right? And I personally think that each one of us has the capacity of doing something like that. This comes back from Star Trek and Picard, and actually, I took an extract and shared that on my YouTube page. If you give credit, then YouTube allows you to use stuff like that. But Picard says something along the lines of, we, as a species, we all have this seed of violence, and there was a time when we were engaged in wars, and then we came, we something along the lines of, we kind of we created a better reality. I'm not doing justice paraphrasing it, but basically, it's not just nuclear. Like I said, it could be any phenomena, like technology, any thing, right? And I think we should create things in a conscious manner. I don't know what that means, really. I can't, 100% honesty, even say that what I am doing, let's bring it back to me, is that, big focus for me is just to change myself, which is being difficult, but also very rewarding. Let's put it out there. I don't want to talk about all this, but I'm just saying, basically what I'm saying is, and this is what I've been thinking. If you let me bring that up. Hopefully, I can find it picture. I actually have the book, The Pale Blue Dot. I think it's a book, right? That's weird. Well, I think it goes back to what we learned with the original Cosmos and the new Cosmos too. But Carl Sagan used to the pale blue dot is one of the most iconic and important topics that the way he I'm not trying to be Carl Sagan. The way Sagan share that perspective was so profound. It just clicks in the consciousness, right, or whatever the cognition. Anyone can understand that no matter how advanced our achievements may be, we're all living on a speck of dust, pretty much. Because if you look at Earth from a particular distance, like I think that picture was taken by Voyager. Should really put the picture in the background. And Sagan articulates that so well that all of the all of the events that have happened in human history, all the emperors, and I think he uses those terms, and all the people and everything. We've all lived on this one speck of this one thing, this pale blue dot, and I think we should become humble that uh, that this is the only planet that we've had, and this is the only planet we're probably going to have for I don't know how long. Depends on how technology advances, what kind of breakthroughs we see, and this is the house, this is the home, this is our home, and you need to protect the home and nurture it and keep it maintain, keep it clean, take care of it, love it, and that's really it. I think right now there's a lot of sick people on our planet, so I'm not going to make a segue because we are invested in healthcare. I truly think that a lot of people on this planet, not just think, there's a lot of data. There's 2 billion people that don't have shelter. There's a lot of malnutrition, which impacts cognition, obviously, brain development. There's almost 2 billion people that don't have a bank account. Overall, as things are getting better, there's like just a lot of sickness, and there's sickness of different kinds. The physiological in random order, and also the psychological. And I think it's kind of like a sickness when there's so many people that are sick, but we still are spending a lot of money on creating and continue to create weapons and weapons and weapons, and then we're selling these weapons to each other, and then at some point somebody does use those weapons and it causes suffering, and then that it causes trauma, and then that trauma lasts for a generation. And I think that this may not be sustainable, and I think we need to evaluate our actions and really get our act together. It's going on a very different topic, but I am a little worried about what's going on with us as a species, because it sometimes it again, there's a lot of indicators. Obviously the world's getting better. Data from Hans Rosling, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Peter Diamandis, Dr. Steven Pinker, and many other individuals. But some things are just troubling, and I think what I shared today could be one of these things, right? My personal thoughts, where I what I suspect, that's almost irrelevant because almost everything I think about happens to be wrong, uh, in a lot of cases. Yeah, and but I think the thoughts are not wasted. Uh, I think I'm coming from a balanced place, and I consider ethics as a core of everything I do. Nobody's perfect, so I'm not gonna like talk about all these issues, but I genuinely think my heart's in a good place, and I just want to leave a good world for my daughter and the future generations, and create the systems and the networks and the platforms whereby there's going to be opportunities for a lot more people using completely sustainable means. And I truly believe we have the capability to do that. But to come back to what I was sharing, sometimes I do get worried about uh, I don't have, obviously have a crystal ball or some means to be able to um, know precisely what's going to happen in the future, or even like in broad like segments or broader, not precisely, but on a macro level, other than just listening to scientists and what's going on in the research front. Some of the names I've shared, like Mr. Freeman Dyson, it's been very interesting predictions just 2 years ago. I think one of his last interviews was with IEEE, but also other individuals like I'm not going to share all the resources, but geneticists and astrophysicists and physicists in general, and even economists and people who look at economic trends like the World Bank, which are a lot of good data, Goldman Sachs. So there's a lot of there's just you can pick up on some trends just listening to people who've been doing this for many for quite some time. The thing that worries me is these kind of just I think what I'm trying to say is I think I could be wrong, but it depends on how you look at things, right? So I think we've been living in a pretty stable time, everything considered, in random order, like from the perspective of astrophysics, where we happen to be in this part of the galaxy, we're in a very stable run or path of source. We're not going through like a dust cloud like they showed in Interstellar, the movie. We're not having rocks raining upon us. Uh, I have no idea where the rock came from 66 million years ago that wiped out the dinosaurs. But there's maybe it was from the solar system, maybe it was from interest like from another system. But that was a tumultuous time, and that's not the only time those kind of events have happened. Now, realizing the fact that these events are few and far in between, and I think individuals like Sir Martin Rees look at phenomena like this on an like it looks like I think that would be like one of the things Sir Martin Rees does on a kind of like I think that's just it sounds like that what he does on a day-to-day basis. But I'm just positing what if and what I like I'm just going with very little information. One of those individuals like Sir Lord Martin Rees, it looks like the analysis based on just purely statistical analysis, which is not something wrong, obviously. But what I'm saying is, what if we were wrong about some of these calculations, and what if the event happened faster? It happened tomorrow. It happened a week from now or next year. So those are the situations that I am thinking about, and yeah, I just want to put this out there. Anyways, to come back to to come back to the topic, the question is really simple. Today's discussion. By the way, once again, I am a huge advocate of clean tech. I do everything in my capacity to be able to support clean tech endeavors within reason. I will always be open to, in my limited capacity, to share ideas and look at things. And I think moving to sustainable means of harnessing our energy, it is absolutely one of the key goals for our species. And it makes total sense considering the fact that you can take like like a portion of Botswana or Zambia, like 10% of Zambia would, if you put solar panels there, it would be enough energy, something like that, 10 to 20%. It would be enough energy to provide energy for 7 to 8 billion, all the humans, all consumer, for residential, industrial, every means. That's enough. But we need to do that sustainably, and well, that's on the clean tech side of things. I'm not anti nuclear. I'm just saying that this we need to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and this doesn't happen again, or like this doesn't happen again. And I guess what I'm saying right now is, if something like this were to happen on this scale, like even if you say half of this, a quarter of that, right? What if the CMEs are flaring up like crazy? They're doing it for weeks or months on end, and then even 10% of these getting impacted negatively would be a pretty bad thing, because we've seen what the impact is with just Chernobyl and Fukushima. So if 44 nuclear or atomic power plants were in a bad shape and something happened to them and we couldn't shut them down. So please, if somebody watching this, please educate me on how this really works. But I'm just asking the question, why? What is this phenomena, first of all, and why are they so interested in nuclear tech? Because it's not like they need to figure out how this tech works. Because if their this phenomena, whatever it is, can move this rapidly, then they're already using some next gen, like stuff we're gonna maybe figure out in the next 100 years. I don't even know if it's propulsion necessarily. It could be like some anti-gravity construct. It could be the tip of some extra dimensional construct. Like I said, we don't know what this is. So if indeed they can shut down and turn on nuclear plants, then the thing is, how are they doing this? So that means they can already read into our computers and other information, and so it's it doesn't look like how our mission, the nuclear tech works for us would be a secret for this phenomena. The question is, why are they interested? And to me, it doesn't look like their intention is hostile. So then the question is, are they trying to warn us? It's a simple question. Yes, it sounds funny, but what if it's true? What if it's true? And if it's true, then if we ignore this warning, then what does that mean for us? Food for thought. I'll let you meditate on that. Not to sound all that. Have a nice day.